At the start of this ICC Cricket World Cup, the Proteas headed progressively west and found themselves in Cardiff, a city that will be remembered for their first win of this World Cup. And they were based in Cardiff Bay, which is known for being redeveloped recently. The redevelopment of the area cost over £102 million and is said to be one of the most expensive in Europe. But during this World Cup Vibe show, we discover why Cardiff is known as the City of Castles as we touch base at museums, parks, as well as some buzzing markets. There's a reason that Wales is called the castle capital of the world. At its height, there were 600 or so castles dotted all over the country, and today there's about 100, including this one, a most beautiful landmark in the centre of the city, dating back to the 11th century.
The history of Cardiff Castle stretches back as far as the Romans. So we're talking 2,000 years of history here. When the Romans first came to Britain, they occupied many different territories. We were a tribal people down here, the people called the Silurians, a fierce warrior tribe. And obviously they overcame them, conquered them. During the process of all of that, they built 4 forts here at the castle. They occupied this area for well over 400 years. When they left, we tend to call that in Wales our Dark Ages, where we don't quite know what happened to the castle. We can assume one of the many princes took ownership of the castle, but we can't actually say that's what happened. There's not a lot of written information, lots of oral information.
While not much information remains about the occupation of the Roman forts for the rest of the first millennium, the Normans who conquered Britain in 1066 built the castle itself on the site in the late 11th century. More than just a defensive structure, the castle was a symbol of the Norman dominion over the Welsh people.
To be perfectly honest with you, that type of structure is totally alien to Wales, where the people here built in wood. This is stone. This is telling the people of Wales, we're staying, we're not going anywhere. And it was crushing. This is psychological warfare, if you like. It's built on the hill, overlooking people, overpowering people. But of course, the Welsh princes throughout our history fought desperately to stop these people making inroads here. But of course they did. That is military, as I said. The house itself comes a little later, in a time we call the Tudor time. A man called Richard Beauchamp, someone who owned the castle, didn't want military anymore. He wanted more softer furnishings, domesticated house. So the middle part of the castle, which you can see with the stone and the architecture, it is totally different to the rest of it. Then we have other areas. We have a big stone area on the kind of square on the end, which came more to do with the 18th century and the Marquesses of Bute, and it's this family that preserved this castle to make it look as magnificent as it is today.
The Bute family took ownership of the castle in 1766 and for almost 2 centuries made major changes and renovations. One of the significant additions the Bute family contributed was Bute Park, which was laid out from 1873. It's what Cardiff City is built around. In the shadow of Cardiff Castle, it's also got the cricket stadium just to its left. It's green and as big as 75 football pitches all put together. It's Bute Park.
Bute Park, as the name suggests, was owned by the family, the last family who owned this castle. This family, a Scottish family, came here quite well in 1766, all because they married the lady, the heiress that owned the castle. Bute Park was part of their private grounds. If you like, it was their back garden. But from 1947, this beautiful castle and Bute Park became the property of the citizens of Cardiff themselves. The world was changing slightly, and the 5th Marquess of Bute in 1947 decided that they would return to Scotland, and therefore they would give this castle to the people of Cardiff themselves. So along with Bute Park, we now own all of this.
The beauty of Bute Park not just the 3,000 tree collections that it has, is that it encapsulates the gentleness of Cardiff as a city. And for the locals who have owned it since 1947, it's definitely a place to congregate, whether it's an early morning run or evening run for that matter, walking the dogs or just hanging out with friends and family.
Lots of people picnic in the park, lots of people just wander through there, and of course because of the crickets, many people walk through Bute Park to get to the cricket ground. So it's, if you like, it's fairly international actually.
Today, Cardiff Castle is a must-see attraction during a visit to the city for the young and old that come here. This authentic experience is a portal to the past.
Well, as you can see, the arena here is all set out. You'll have 2 knights fighting. You'll have lots of people cheering. You either support the blue or support the red knights. Obviously, in medieval times, they had tournaments like this. So a lot of activities would have taken place. What's lovely too is the children are always included. They go back to medieval games, medieval things that they would have had to play with. And those knights learned how to fight with a wooden sword. The children here get to do things like that. And of course, the knights, when they finish fighting, they take children through a little bit of training. But over in the far arena, you have the super knights, we'll call them, shall we? You have the tournament knights on horseback, and obviously they compete against one another. So yes, you'd have lots of colour, lots of flags, lots of shouting, and they show you their skills as well, not just with the sword, with the lance. So yes, obviously then we've got lots of people storytelling for the children, to occupy the children. So there's a great sense of energy, activity, and you are transported back into time, as you said.
We went searching for the sights and the smells of Cardiff and found one of its favourite markets with close to 300 stalls. It is a focal point of the city, a mecca of cuisine and fresh produce. I love this market. There's so much energy here. The Sage Deli, when did that first start up?
Well, the deli itself's been open 5 months, but my family's been in the market for years and years and years. A lot of people have. A lot of the stalls are like family owned, and some have been here like 100 years.
What is a typical day like for you, and when is the busiest period, and what do you offer?
Well, we offer sandwiches, salads, coffees, just nice fresh food. We're normally in from like 7. There are other stores that get here at like 6. Everyone's just in all day, everyone knows each other. And then, yeah, well, our busy time is lunchtime, but it varies on the store really. But we're very much here for the office workers who want to come in and have a nice fresh salad for their lunch.
And the inspiration behind Sage Deli, where does that come from?
So my parents very much liked, they loved going to markets around the world, and they loved how in Barcelona you could like sit around the stall and have like a glass of wine, and whilst we can't do that, just having a nice area for people to sit, and then also like a New York deli where everything's kind of laid out in front of you in the glass. So that was a big inspiration for the place.
This is Hats Emporium. So what we do, we're predominantly a vintage clothing outlet, but we also do our own tailoring, bespoke tailoring, so we'll make you a suit, make you an overcoat, make you a waistcoat. And we couple that with some new goods, which are generally heritage gear, so, you know, Fox umbrellas, MPS boots, we're official stockists for Stetson. So, yeah, we kind of cross all periods, so really what it is a kind of a catalogue of clothing from about 1900s, and we'll go right through up until about 1990s.
Now tell me, we're here for the cricket, obviously. What about cricket fans? Do they come in, do they get their straw hats? Is it from you?
Absolutely. A true cricket fan, I'm on about historically now, would go for something like a rollable Panama. So there was a period when you would have your rollable Panama in your jacket, in your linen suit, and you would be watching the cricket, and then sun come out, you would take your rollable Panama, you'd flick it open, you take your school tie or your cricketing tie, and you'd use that as the band around your straw hat. So that's where that kind of Panama in cricket comes from, and you know that's been moved along slowly to these kind of cricketing bucket hats you see them wearing a lot now. But historically, you would go to a cricket match with your Panama, equatorial woven as well.
Well, my name's Nick Adams. I'm manager of Ashton Fishmongers of Cardiff. Welcome here. And my family has been involved here since 1973.
And what is your selection?
Well, we got a huge selection here. Usual things like cod, plaice and hake, farm salmon, and we have some different, more exotic varieties like tuna, swordfish, red snapper, all sorts of different shellfish, different sorts of prawns, and we've got a huge range really.
And of those who do buy from the market, what is the best selling one?
The best player is salmon, probably salmon, cod, hake, or plaice, or a lot of sea bass we sell these days as well.
It's everything that you could possibly want or need right here in this market. I'm seeing fresh produce, there's spices, the sights and the smells. It's so vibrant and so fresh. It's definitely my kind of place. World Cup Vibes journey does continue through the rest of England as we say goodbye to the legends and the castles of Wales and say hello to a city that will host 5 World Cup matches in total, including a semi-final. Next stop, Birmingham. We say goodbye to Cardiff and its city of castles and headed north to the second largest city in the UK that is home to a booming art industry, groundbreaking musicians, as well as chocolate, jewellery, and is just a stone's throw away from William Shakespeare's birthplace. Welcome to Birmingham. I'm not at a cricket ground. You're going to find me here in Birmingham. It's definitely the place to be. It's the home of Cadbury, and we're about to see what that chocolate making process is all about.
So Cadbury World, we've got a variety of zones. You can discover the origins of cocoa bean through the Aztec jungle. We've got zones all about the heritage of the Cadbury brand. You can find out how chocolate's made, how chocolate was made in the past. You can go on a ride through a magical land with the cocoa beans, and also in our 4D cinema you can join the Cadbury characters, Freddo and the Caramel Bunny, on an adventure around Bournville.
Cadbury chocolate, a favourite for millions of South Africans, was founded in Birmingham nearly 200 years ago. Over those 2 centuries, Cadbury's has become the second largest confectionery brand in the world and operates in more than 50 countries globally.
John Cadbury actually first opened his shop in the Ball Street in Birmingham city centre in 1824. And then over the years he then developed into a chocolate manufacturer and came over to the Bournville site in 1879, so we've been here ever since.
Being a lover of chocolate, I couldn't pass up the opportunity to get first-hand experience of making some myself, with a little help from one of Cadbury World's chocolatiers.
You definitely have to stop by the chocolate making zone. That's where you can find out how they made chocolate back in the early 1900s. And also you can see how it's made, but also have a go yourself. So have a go yourself at tempering chocolate, writing your name in chocolate, drawing a little picture, something which everybody really loves doing.
Hi Crystal, you having a nice day?
Yeah, very good, Jay. I'm so excited to be here and to see what you do.
Okay.
So what are you doing right now?
I think you'll enjoy this because this chocolate's 40 degrees, very warm, and put it on the marble. The marble surface is the best to use because it's easy to clean, very durable. Natural cools the chocolate down, you see. And then spread it out, hand temper it by using a fishtail and knife, making it sticky and shiny, and then basically pouring it onto the mould, covering all the shapes, giving it a good shake, make the air bubbles rise to the top, scraping the extra chocolate off, turning it upside down, extra chocolate falls out, rest sticks in there, scraping the excess off and doing the fillings, and in the fridge it goes and it's ready. It's about half an hour process to make one of these. So that's the technique of how they used to make the chocolates many years ago.
Wonderful. What a fascinating process in making the chocolate. Jay, thank you so much for showing us how it's done. I think I may have found my next calling.
I'm going to give you a certificate today. You're a chocolatier today.
It's just because I love chocolate that much. Shall we go taste it?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
They do say that the proof is in the tasting, so I'm going to do it.
Okay.
Okay, I think I will go with the Oreo one
Oreo
to start with.
Okay.
Awesome. It's lovely. When visiting Birmingham, whip out your must-see list, and on that you'd have the Jewellery Quarter, the canal waterways, but number one on the list has to be its biggest attraction, this Cadbury World. Birmingham, like so many large cosmopolitan cities around the world, has an inner city culture that is dynamic, vibrant, and filled with creativity. One of the most obvious expressions of that creativity is the visual arts, particularly graffiti, especially when it's in your face and the size of buildings, as is the case in the coolest neighborhood in Birmingham, Digbeth. Local graffiti artist Title took me on a tour of Digbeth, showcasing some of the spectacular artwork that has transformed this industrialized hub into a modern, exciting and inspirational space that is now attracting artists from all over the world.
Well, I think with Digbeth, I mean, this was always an industrial area. A lot of the factories across the road have been pulled down to make way for luxury apartments. A lot of the warehouses around here have been taken over by creative businesses, particularly this complex here, the Custard Factory. It was called the Custard Factory because it was literally Bird's Foot Custard Factory. Closed down in the 20th century, reopened about 20 years ago, and it's drawn in lots of creative, small, independent businesses. And a lot of the local businesses have given up their walls for graffiti and street art. So as the buildings around in the area over the last 2 decades have come down and have become wasteland as they're awaiting, redevelopment, they've been taken over by the street art. I think every major city in the world has embraced graffiti and street art at some level of. It's absolutely huge. People contact me from South Africa, South America, North America, across Europe. I mean, it's a massive scene. I mean, with Birmingham being the second city, you're going to get it. And this particular area of Digbeth seems to be the main spot. There are 1 or 2 other areas dotted around the city where there's a lot of other, examples of decent graffiti and street art. But the last 2 decades, particularly, Digbeth's been the place. Well, this piece was for the Odeon Cinemas. The Odeon Cinema updated one of their new showcase cinemas in the city centre just over 12 months ago. They contacted me. They asked me whether I could do it around about this time last year. So this has been up for about a year. At the time, I was just about to fly to Dubai to do a large commission. So literally, I had to get something down, get a load of images that had to do with Birmingham icons and cinema and the Odeon Cinema as well. Literally came back from Dubai, and the next day I started this, and it had to be finished 2 days later. So I literally had 3 days to do it. Because the scene has exploded, not just in this city, across the world, and it's brought in, it used to be real hardcore working class type of artist, and the art establishment didn't get it. But now, with all these facets of like street artists and graphic designers and illustrators all painting stuff on walls, it's all people from all different walks of life. It's not just about working class people. I go into schools and I talk to kids about graffiti in their art lessons. That would have been unheard of when I was at school. And I've even been into lectures and talked to students about street art. So there's guys leaving university with a degree in fine art, and they want to be a street artist.
So this is where the Proteas were based during their stay in Birmingham, just a few kilometres away from Edgbaston, but we're headed in a different direction. We're on a bit of a road trip to head to the Motor Museum. The British Motor Museum is a short drive from Birmingham and is the perfect attraction for fans of automobiles. Housing a replica of the first car ever built, modern British sports cars and everything in between, the museum's collection of hundreds of iconic cars will leave an indelible mark in the heart of every motoring enthusiast that visits.
This museum really, for a lot of our visitors, is a trip down memory lane. A lot of our visitors come here to see the motor cars that their grandfathers had, their fathers had, and for people from my generation, the cars that we've had over the years as well. But this museum has about 350 cars altogether, and we're split between two buildings. 150 in here, there's another 200 in our collection centre. And we go back to the very start of the motor industry in 1886. With a replica of Carl Benz's motor car from Germany at that time. And then picking up in 10 years later, when the motor industry in the UK really then started to pick up and run. 60 years ago this year, the Mini was launched, and when it was launched, the only way to describe it is, I guess, revolutionary, because it had three particular features. Not necessarily new, but they were new to major production cars. The first one was the transverse engine, i.e. putting the engine in across the car instead of in line. That allowed him to put the gearbox underneath as a sump gearbox rather than behind the engine. That allowed the car always to be made a lot shorter. And then he had front-wheel drive, which was something that was pretty new in production cars at the time. And the Mini has been the template in many ways for a lot of small production cars since its launch in '59. Land Rover was one of the other icons of British motoring, in particular the Defender, which started life off in 1948. It carried through production until 2016. And if I were to set the 2016 one next to the 1948 one, the very first one that we have here, you would immediately recognise, that one belonged to the other and one had been derived from the other. There had been minor changes to the front. So the headlamps, for instance, have migrated out to the wings, but the shape of the front is substantially the same as it was in 1948. There are some cars here that are priceless. The problem with a museum like this that has lots of cars that are, say, the first and last off the line, they are unique. They have never been offered for sale, but there is one Jaguar, the XJ13, that was designed originally to run at the Le Mans 24-hour race, but never ever did get to race. But when they were launching the Jaguar E-Type with the V12 5-litre engine, the XJ13 was taken to the launch, and unfortunately, even though the driver, even though he'd been warned about the age of the tyres and the wheels, he managed to flip the car, and so back it went into storage. It's now been restored and it sits here in all its glory. but we know that the Jaguar Daimler Trust has probably been offered around 25 million to part with the car, but they'll never ever do that.